Okay, hi, my name is Madalyn. I'm a psychology major with a neuro minor and an honors minor. And this was a perspective piece to give a little bit of background on this project. It did not start as this project itself. It started as a meta-analysis on visual spatial processing of dyslexic individuals. And because there was such limited evidence on this topic of visual spatial reasoning, there was not enough to do a meta-analysis on. So it shifted to this perspective piece that I'll be presenting on today. So my mentor was Dr. Tim Odegaard at the Dyslexia Center at MTSU, and my topic is Neurodiversity and Dyslexia, questioning the potential gifts of dyslexia. So there's a lot of expectations of what a good student should be or a good child should be. So in the classroom, there's things like kindness that's important, and following directions, and performing well academically. For dyslexic individuals, performing academically can be an area of trouble because of word reading problems and spelling difficulties. So this can make it challenging for a child to meet these expectations from the beginning of their schooling. So let's talk a little bit about what dyslexia is. So the International Dyslexia Association has this definition that is generally identified as the dyslexic definition among researchers. It's becoming more talked about and will probably change over the course of the next coming years. But for right now, this is what we have. So dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition, by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So with the limited conversation that's actually had about dyslexia in society, it's really surprising that 6 to 17% of students in school populations will have this diagnosis. So let's talk about dyslexia and mental health. So how does it have any application to mental health? As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of expectations that are held on these children of what a good child should be. So when you're not meeting the expectations within the classroom, it can be very challenging as a kid, as an adult, to be told what you can't do. And when you have this diagnosis, sometimes it's relieving because you can have a reasoning of why you're not succeeding. But for a lot of children, it's very defeating. And there's a lot of deterministic values that are placed on them of what they can't do in the classroom. So because of that, there's a lot of anxiety and depression that we're seeing within the dyslexia population. And so a counter to this was the neurodiversity movement. So the neurodiversity movement was really supposed to empower and support these individuals who are neurobiologically different in the way that they think or the way that they learn. And so it's a good thing originally. It's supposed to encourage these individuals, to value them in society, to allow for accommodations to be provided. All these things are good things. However, what it has become is a little bit different. So there's becoming this set list of superpowers that are denoted with neurodiversity, specifically with dyslexia. So neurodiversity started as a term that was over just autism, and so now it's also been spread to things like dyslexia, which we're talking about here, still autism, OCD, ODD, many different things that can fall underneath this umbrella. So let's talk about how it's impacting dyslexia specifically. So there's these set of superpowers that are forming, such as creativity, visual spatial reasoning, problem solving, empathy, are all things that are listed as things that come with dyslexia. So not just saying that there are these limitations, but they're saying that there are these set things that come with dyslexia as a gift. So that potentially initially sounds great, like we're encouraging these kids that they have these set gifts that come along with their diagnoses. However, what this does is if you don't meet those expectations and you don't have a creative gift, or you're not have a visual spatial reasoning gift, or you aren't empathetic, if you're not these things, then that can be demotivating too. That can be really challenging on your mental health. So it's creating this fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset, and it's not focusing on all the things that these kids are doing in order to achieve these gifts. So it's potentially creating a positive stereotype. So here I have a couple examples of positive stereotype versus negative stereotype. So negative would be women are not good at being leaders. The positive stereotype are women are better leaders than men. And the truth is that gender doesn't have anything to do with leadership. So for dyslexia, there are negative stereotypes that are produced, like dyslexic individuals are lazy, dyslexic individuals are unable to achieve things, which is a negative stereotype. That's obviously not true of the population of dyslexic individuals. For a positive stereotype, which the neurodiversity movement has encouraged, would be things such as dyslexic individuals are creative, dyslexic individuals are empathetic. These are a positive stereotype that potentially are harmful to these individuals. And the truth is that dyslexia does not have anything to do with your individual abilities. Dyslexia is your diagnosis, not your identification. So, how do we walk away with this? So students who have dyslexia, I am one who has dyslexia, I would encourage you to have a growth mindset. To not be focused on just the things that you can do, but be focused on how much work you put in to get there. For parents, I would suggest that you do your research before you go into encouraging your children in this specific way. Understand the empirical evidence that's behind different things before you just throw it onto your children. And I would also encourage you to have a growth mindset. For teachers, I would encourage you to value the variations within your classroom, because there's a lot of different learners in your classroom and it's really easy to overlook them. So I would really emphasize valuing them. So that's a little bit about my project. So I wanted to offer you some thesis lessons because this process has been different in many different ways. So, alright. So this is a little chart that I came up with. So a lot of people have already said these things, but I'm just going to go over them. The things that I suggest that maybe weren't mentioned. One of them is don't lose sight of your why. So your final product. Why are you doing this? What is the purpose of it? And why are you passionate about it? It's really important to have a passion behind your project so that you can value it and you can see the end goal. And why you're doing it in general. I would communicate with your mentor, as some people have already said, but that's really important. Meeting every week to every 2 weeks is very, very important. And then the rest of them have really been mentioned. Just don't wait till the last minute. That's a really big piece of advice, is don't wait till the last minute. So this is a QR code to my paper. If anybody wants to further have any interest in this topic, it goes further into detail on the history of dyslexia, neurodiversity movement history, the historical understanding of it, and then also more into positive stereotyping research on that topic. It just goes into further detail than I can do in this time frame. So, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.